The Galactic Council Chamber was the largest structure ever built by any known species. It floated in the empty space between three star systems, a massive sphere of crystal and metal that could hold millions of beings at once. For 12,000 years, this place had served as the center of galactic civilization. 300 different species sent their representatives here to discuss trade, war, peace, and the future of all intelligent life. Today, the council had gathered to witness something new. A young species had finally developed faster than light travel and made contact with the greater galactic community. This happened from time to time, perhaps once every few centuries. It was always treated as a minor event, something to note in the records before moving on to more important matters. The species called themselves humans. They came from a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star in an outer arm of the galaxy. Their civilization was barely 10,000 years old. Their technology was crude by galactic standards. They had only just learned to leave their own solar system. Ambassador Kate Morrison stood alone in the center of the great chamber. She was a tall woman with gray hair and calm eyes. Around her, rising up in endless tiers, sat the representatives of the galaxy's great powers. Some were reptilian, with scales that gleamed under the artificial lights. Others were insectoid, clicking and buzzing in their own languages. Some had no solid form at all, existing as clouds of conscious gas. Contained in special chambers, all of them looked down at the single human with expressions that ranged from mild curiosity to open contempt. "Hi." Counselor Zethrin of the Velthari Dominion spoke first. The Velthari were among the oldest species in the council, with a recorded history stretching back over 100,000 years. Zethrin himself was ancient by any standard. His green scales faded to a pale gray, his eyes still sharp despite his age. "We welcome humanity to the galactic community," Zethrin said. Though his tone made it clear this welcome was merely formal. "You have much to learn. Your kind are infants in a galaxy of elders. We hope you will listen to those who came before you and avoid the mistakes that young species often make." Kate Morrison smiled politely. She had been warned that this would happen. The galactic powers did not take new species seriously. It would be decades, perhaps centuries, before humanity would be treated as equals. "We thank the Council for this opportunity," Kate replied. Her voice was steady and calm. "Humanity looks forward to learning from the wisdom of older civilizations." There were sounds of approval from some sections of the chamber. The human knew her place. That was good, but Kate had not told them everything. There were secrets she carried, secrets that even she did not fully understand. Before leaving Earth, she had been briefed by Admiral Jack Turner, the commander of Earth's space forces. The Admiral had shown her something that had shaken her to her core far away. On Earth, those secrets were being uncovered at that very moment. Dr. Ben Harris had spent 15 years of his life studying ice. He was a glaciologist, a scientist who specialized in understanding the ancient frozen layers of Antarctica. His work was usually boring. He drilled cores from the ice, analyzed the air bubbles trapped inside, and tried to understand what Earth's climate had been like thousands of years ago. But 6 months ago, his instruments had detected something impossible. 3 miles below the surface of the Antarctic ice sheet, there was a structure. Not a natural formation, but something built. Something artificial. Ben had requested additional funding and equipment. He had assembled a team of the best scientists he could find. They had drilled down through the ancient ice, past layers that were hundreds of thousands of years old, past ice that had formed. When humanity's ancestors were still living in caves, what they found changed everything. The structure was enormous. It stretched for miles beneath the ice, a complex of chambers and corridors made from a material that no one could identify. The walls were covered in symbols, a written language that matched nothing in human history. But the most disturbing discovery was the age of the structure. Ben's team used every dating method available to science. They tested the ice around the structure. They analyzed the rock beneath it. They examined the structure itself with instruments that could measure the decay of atoms over billions of years. The results were always the same. The structure was over 4 billion years old. This was impossible. 4 billion years ago, Earth was a dead world of molten rock and poison gas. Life had not yet appeared. The first simple bacteria would not evolve for another billion years. Humans would not exist for almost 4 billion years after that. Yet here was a structure, clearly built by intelligent beings that predated life itself on Earth. Ben stood in the main chamber of the ancient complex. Surrounded by his team, Dr. Megan Price, an expert in ancient languages, was photographing the symbols on the walls. Dr. Daniel Ross, a physicist, was taking readings from a strange machine in the center of the room. "This doesn't make sense," Ben said quietly. "Nothing about this makes sense." Megan looked up from her camera. "The symbols are consistent throughout the entire structure. This was built by an advanced civilization. There's no question about that." "But for billion years ago, there was no civilization," Ben replied. "There was no life. There was nothing." Daniel called out from across the chamber, "Ben, you need to see this." Ben walked over to where Daniel stood. The physicist was staring at a large panel on the wall, covered in the strange symbols. But in the center of the panel was something different, something that made Ben's heart stop. It was a map of Earth. Not the Earth of 4 billion years ago, Earth as it looked today. The continents were in their current positions. The oceans were marked with their modern depths, and scattered across the surface, marked with small glowing points, were locations. Antarctica was one of them. But there were others. Hundreds of others, points scattered across every continent, beneath every ocean, in places that humanity had never thought to look. "There's more," Daniel said. "Look at this." He pointed to another section of the map. It showed not just Earth, but the entire solar system. And beyond that, the galaxy itself. Thousands of points were marked, spreading out along the spiral arms of the Milky Way. Ben felt dizzy. "What is this? What does this mean?" Megan had joined them. Her face was pale. "I've been working on translating the symbols. I'm not done yet, but I've decoded enough to understand the basics." "And?" Ben asked. Megan took a deep breath. "This isn't a structure built by aliens who visited Earth. This is a structure built by the original inhabitants of Earth, by beings who existed before life evolved. Before the planet cooled, before anything else in the galaxy developed intelligence." "That's impossible," Ben whispered. "There's more," Megan continued. "According to these texts, those beings didn't disappear. They didn't go extinct. They changed themselves. They became something else, something simpler. They chose to forget, to sleep, to wait. Wait for what?" Megan pointed to a final symbol at the bottom of the panel. It was simple compared to the others, almost primitive, but Ben recognized it immediately. It was a shape that humans had been drawing since the earliest days of civilization. On cave walls and in temples and on flags, it was a human figure. Arms raised toward the stars. "They were waiting for us," Megan said. "We're not newcomers to this galaxy, Ben. We're not young at all. We're the oldest. We're the first. And these structures are our inheritance, waiting for us to remember who we truly are." Far away, in the Galactic Council chamber, Kate Morrison continued to smile politely as the alien delegates looked down on her with condescension. They had no idea what was coming. The Kethferi Empire had ruled over 40 star systems for the past 8,000 years. They were a warrior species, proud and aggressive, with thick gray skin and 4 powerful arms. Their ships were engines of destruction, built for one purpose only. War Commander Vrexel stood on the bridge of his flagship, the crushing storm, watching the stars streak past as his fleet traveled through hyperspace. Behind him, 200 warships followed in perfect formation. It was enough firepower to destroy a planet. It was far more than enough to deal with a single human colony. The humans had been expanding too quickly. In the 50 years since they had joined the galactic community, they had established colonies on nearly 100 worlds. Most of these worlds were in unclaimed space, territories that no other species had bothered to settle. But the Kethfari did not like seeing any species grow so fast. They had decided to send a message. New Haven was a small colony world on the edge of human space. It had a population of only 200,000 people. mostly farmers and miners. It had no military value. That was exactly why the Kethvari had chosen it. They would destroy New Haven, kill everyone on it, and show humanity what happened to species that forgot their place. "Commander," one of his officers called out, "we will arrive at New Haven in 3 hours." Vrexel smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Good. Prepare all weapons. I want this to be quick." On New Haven, nobody knew what was coming. Captain Sam Bradley was the highest-ranking military officer on the planet. He commanded a small defense force of just 500 soldiers and 3 patrol ships. It was enough to deal with pirates or local criminals. It was nothing against a real military force. Sam was eating breakfast in his small apartment when the alarm sounded. He dropped his fork and ran to the command center, a simple building in the center of the colony's main city. Lieutenant Amy Collins was already there, staring at the sensor screens with wide eyes. "What is it?" Sam asked. "Kethvari fleet," Amy replied. Her voice was shaking. 200 ships. They'll be here in less than 3 hours. Sam felt his blood turn cold. 200 Kethvari warships. Against 3 patrol boats and 500 soldiers. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. "Start the evacuation," Sam ordered. "Get everyone to the emergency shelters. Send a distress signal to Earth. Maybe they can send help." But he knew it was hopeless. Earth was too far away. Help could not arrive in time. The next 2 hours were chaos. People ran through the streets, grabbing their children and their most precious belongings, rushing toward the underground shelters. Sam and Amy organized the evacuation as best they could, trying to stay calm while knowing that the shelters would not protect anyone from orbital bombardment. When the Kethvari fleet appeared in the sky above New Haven, it blocked out the sun. The ships were massive, dark shapes that seemed to fill the entire horizon. They hung there in silence, weapons pointed down at the helpless colony, on the crushing storm. Commander Vrexel prepared to give the order to fire. He wanted to savor this moment. The humans below were probably screaming in terror. Good, let them scream. But before he could speak, something strange happened. The sensors on his ship began to flash with warnings. Energy readings were spiking from the planet's surface. Not from the human colony, but from deep underground. From beneath the very crust of the planet? "What is that?" Vrexel demanded. His officers checked their instruments. "Unknown energy signature, Commander. It doesn't match anything in our database. The readings are impossible. The power levels are higher than our entire fleet combined." On the surface of New Haven, Sam and Amy watched in amazement as the ground began to shake. Cracks appeared in the earth, glowing with golden light. Something was rising from beneath the planet's surface. Something enormous. It was a machine. Or perhaps it was a ship. It was hard to tell. The structure was miles across, made from a strange dark material that seemed to absorb light. It rose slowly from the ground, pushing aside mountains of rock and soil as if they were nothing. Ancient symbols glowed along its surface, the same symbols that Dr. Ben Harris had found in Antarctica. The colonists stopped running. They stood in the streets, staring up at the impossible thing that had emerged from their world. More structures were rising. All across New Haven, ancient machines were waking up. Weapon platforms. Shield generators. Things that had no names in any modern language. They had been buried beneath the surface for billions of years. Waiting for humans to arrive, the Kethvari fleet opened fire. Thousands of missiles and energy beams streaked down toward the planet, but they never reached their targets. A shield appeared around New Haven, a dome of golden energy that stretched from horizon to horizon. The Kethvari weapons struck the shield and vanished, absorbed without a trace. Then the ancient machines fired back. Beams of light shot up from the planet's surface. They were not like any weapon that Kethvari had ever seen. They did not burn or explode. They simply erased. Whatever they touched ceased to exist. 20 Kethvari ships were destroyed in the first second. 50 more in the next. Commander Vrexel screamed orders at his officers, trying to retreat, trying to escape. But the ancient weapons were too fast, too powerful. In less than 5 minutes, The Kethvari fleet of 200 warships was reduced to scattered debris drifting through space. Only a handful of ships managed to escape into hyperspace, carrying survivors who would tell the rest of the galaxy what had happened. On New Haven, the colonists slowly emerged from their hiding places. The ancient machines had stopped firing. They floated silently above the planet, waiting. The golden shield faded away. Sam stood in the middle of the main street, staring up at the massive structure that had saved them all. Amy stood beside him, her mouth hanging open. "What is that thing?" she whispered. "I don't know," Sam replied. "But I think it was waiting for us." At the same moment, similar events were happening across human space. On every world where humans had established colonies, ancient structures were awakening. Weapon systems that had been dormant for 4 billion years were coming online. Ships were rising from oceans and emerging from mountains. An entire network of unimaginable technology was activating itself on Earth. Dr. Ben Harris received reports from across the planet. The structures he had found in Antarctica were just the beginning. There were thousands more, hidden in places humanity had never explored. And they were all waking up. He sent an urgent message to Admiral Jack Turner. "The ancient machines are activating everywhere," Ben said. "Whatever we found here, it's not just on Earth. It's on every world where humans have set foot. It's like they were waiting for us. They recognized us." Admiral Turner read the message in his office, his face grim. He had suspected something like this might happen. The technology they had found was clearly designed to respond to human presence. But the scale of what was happening was beyond anything he had imagined. He picked up his communicator and contacted Ambassador Kate Morrison at the Galactic Council. "Kate," he said, "we have a situation." On the far side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was already in an uproar. Reports of the Kethvari defeat had reached them. Species that had ignored humanity for 50 years were now demanding answers. Kate Morrison stood in the center of the chamber, just as she had on her first day. But now the alien delegates were not looking at her with contempt. They were looking at her with fear. "What have you done?" High Counselor Zethrin demanded. "What have you awakened?" Kate thought about the message she had just received from Admiral Turner. She thought about the ancient structures rising on human worlds. She thought about the truth that was finally coming to light. "We didn't awaken anything," she said calmly. "We simply came home." The chamber erupted in confusion and anger. But Kate remained still, her expression unreadable. The galaxy was about to learn the truth about humanity, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Every species in the known galaxy had sent representatives. Even those who had not attended a council meeting in thousands of years had come. They needed to understand what was happening. They needed to know what humanity truly was. High Counselor Zethrin called the assembly to order. His voice, usually calm and commanding, trembled slightly. In his 100,000 years of life, he had never faced anything like this. 3 days ago, he began, a Kethvari fleet of 200 warships was destroyed. While attacking the human colony of New Haven, the weapons that destroyed them were not human technology. They were something else. Something ancient. Something we do not understand. Murmurs filled the chamber. Every delegate had seen the reports. Every delegate was afraid. Since then, Zethrin continued, similar events have occurred across human space. Ancient structures have risen from beneath the surface of every world where humans have established a presence. These structures contain technology far beyond anything we possess, far beyond anything we have ever seen. He turned to face Ambassador Kate Morrison, who stood alone in the center of the chamber. "Ambassador Morrison, the Council demands an explanation. What have you awakened? What are these structures? What is humanity's connection to them?" Kate took a deep breath. She had spent the last 3 days in constant communication with Earth, learning everything she could about what Dr. Ben Harris and his team had discovered. The truth was difficult to believe, but it was the truth. "The Council has always believed that humanity is a young species," Kate said. Her voice was steady, clear. "You have looked at our civilization and seen a people who only recently learned to travel among the stars. You have treated us as children, Newcomers. Primitives. She paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. You were wrong. The murmurs grew louder. Zethrin raised a hand for silence. Explain, he demanded. Kate nodded. 6 months ago, our scientists discovered a structure buried beneath the ice of Antarctica on Earth. This structure was over 4 billion years old. It predates all life on our planet. It predates the formation of our planet's oceans. It was built when Earth was still a ball of molten rock. Gasps echoed through the chamber. 4 billion years. Even the oldest species in the Council had civilizations measured in mere hundreds of thousands of years. At first, we thought it was built by alien visitors, Kate continued, but we were wrong. The structure contained records, histories, explanations, and what we learned changed everything we thought we knew about ourselves. She paused again, gathering her strength for what came next. 5 billion years ago, the first intelligent species evolved in this galaxy. They called themselves the Architects. They arose on a world that no longer exists, in a star system that was consumed by a black hole long ago. But before their homeworld was destroyed, they spread across the galaxy. They built wonders that we cannot imagine. They seeded life on countless worlds. They guided evolution. They prepared the galaxy for habitation. The chamber was silent now. Every delegate was listening, afraid to breathe. The Architects created the conditions for all life in this galaxy to exist, Kate said. The Velthari. The Kethvari. Every species represented in this chamber. You all evolved on worlds that the Architects prepared. You are all their children in a way. High Counselor Zethrin Scales had turned pale. And humanity. Where do humans fit into this story? Kate met his eyes. We don't fit into the story. We are the story. Humanity is not descended from the Architects. Humanity is the Architects. We are what they became. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted in disbelief. Some laughed. Some screamed accusations. But Kate stood firm, waiting for the noise to die down. I know this is difficult to accept, she said when the chamber had quieted. It was difficult for us to accept as well. But the evidence is undeniable. Approximately 4 billion years ago, the Architects faced a great catastrophe. We do not yet know what it was. Perhaps a war. Perhaps a natural disaster. Perhaps something we cannot comprehend. Whatever it was, it forced them to make a terrible choice. She pulled out a small device and projected an image into the air above her. It showed the symbols that Dr. Harris had found in Antarctica. The Architects chose to forget, Kate explained. They could not fight what was coming. They could not run. So they hid. They rebuilt their bodies, made themselves simpler, more primitive. They erased their own memories. They scattered themselves across the galaxy, hiding among the worlds they had created. And they waited. Waited for what? Zethron asked. Waited to remember. Waited to come home. On Earth, Dr. Ben Harris was making new discoveries every hour. With the help of Dr. Megan Price, he had translated large sections of the Architect texts. The story they told was both beautiful and tragic. The Architects had been a species of incredible power. They had mastered technology that could reshape stars and move planets. They had lived for millions of years, individual minds that spanned centuries. They had thought themselves invincible, but something had humbled them. Something had forced them to give up everything they were, to become small, to become mortal. To become human, it designed it all. Megan explained to a gathering of Earth's leaders. The evolution of humanity was not random. It was planned. The Architects encoded instructions into our very DNA. They knew that one day. Their descendants would develop intelligence again, would build civilizations again, would reach for the stars again. General Chris Palmer leaned forward. And the structures, the weapons. Left behind for us to find, Megan replied. When the Architects went to sleep, they left their technology hidden throughout the galaxy, buried on every world where they knew their descendants would eventually settle. The machines were designed to recognize human genetic signatures. They waited for billions of years for us to arrive. And now that we have, they're waking up. How much technology are we talking about? The general asked. Ben Harris pulled up a map on the main screen. It showed thousands of points of light scattered across human space. We've identified over 3,000 major architect installations on worlds where humans have established colonies. Each installation contains enough weaponry to destroy entire fleets. Some contain shipyards with vessels ready to fly. Others contain manufacturing facilities that can build anything we can imagine. The total military power represented here is beyond calculation. Palmer stared at the map. We could conquer the entire galaxy. Yes, Ben agreed. We could. But that's not what the architects wanted. That's not why they left all this for us. He brought up another image, a translation of an architect message. They left us a warning, Ben said. They told us that power without wisdom leads to destruction. They told us that they made terrible mistakes in their past. They hurt other species. They damaged the galaxy. When they chose to forget, they also chose to start over, to have a second chance, to become better. On the Galactic Council stage, Kate Morrison was making the same point. We do not know why the architects fell, she told the assembled delegates. We do not know what great enemy they faced or what terrible mistakes they made, but we know what they hoped for. They hoped that when their descendants remembered who they were, they would not repeat the errors of the past. She looked around at the alien faces watching her, faces filled with fear and suspicion and anger. Humanity has the power to destroy every species in this chamber, Kate said quietly. We have the power to conquer every world in the galaxy, but that is not what we want. That is not who we choose to be. She extended her hands, palms open. We want to be partners. We want to build a better galaxy together. The architects created the conditions for all your species to exist. In a way, we are all family, and it is time for this family to come together, not as rulers and subjects, but as equals. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then High Counselor Zethrin slowly rose from his seat. He looked at Kate Morrison with new eyes. Not the eyes of someone looking at a primitive newcomer, but the eyes of someone meeting an ancestor for the first time. We have much to discuss, he said quietly, and much to learn. Perhaps we have all been children until now. Perhaps it is time for all of us to grow up together. Kate smiled. It was a start. The truth about humanity had finally come to light. Now came the hard part. Now they had to decide what to do with it. Emperor Krathel of the Kethfari Empire stood before his war council. His forearms folded across his massive chest. The chamber was filled with his most trusted generals and admirals, the leaders of the most powerful military force in the known galaxy, or at least what had been the most powerful military force until a few weeks ago. The news from New Haven had spread across the Empire like wildfire. 200 of their finest warships destroyed in minutes by ancient weapons that had risen from the ground. The survivors spoke of golden shields and beams of light that erased matter from existence. They spoke of machines older than the stars, and they spoke of humans.
Ow.
This cannot stand, Krathel growled. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. The humans are weak. They have only just learned to travel between stars. Whatever these ancient weapons are, the humans do not know how to use them. Not yet. Admiral Karak, the Emperor's most experienced military commander, stepped forward. Your Majesty, we have lost 200 ships. The humans did not lose a single soldier. Perhaps we should consider diplomatic options. Krathel's eyes blazed with anger. Diplomatic options? You would have me bow to these creatures? You would have me admit that the Kethfari Empire fears a species that was playing with sticks and mud while we were conquering star systems. I am saying we should be cautious, Korak replied carefully. The ancient technology they have awakened is beyond anything we possess. If we attack again and fail again, we will appear weak to the entire galaxy. We appear weak by doing nothing, Krathel snapped. No, we will not wait. We will not negotiate. We will gather every ship in the Empire, every soldier, every weapon, and we will crush the humans before they learn to fully control their new toys. The War Council shifted nervously. Some agreed with their emperor. The Kethvari had built their empire through strength and aggression. Backing down now would invite challenges from every rival power in the galaxy. Others were afraid. They had seen the recordings from New Haven. They had seen their ships erased from existence like dust blown away by wind. But no one dared to speak against the Emperor's decision. Within 2 weeks, the Kethvari had assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 10,000 warships, carrying 5 million soldiers. Every ship the Empire possessed, every weapon, every resource they gathered near the Orion Nebula, a vast cloud of gas and dust where they could hide their approach. From there, they would strike at the heart of human space. They would attack Earth itself, cut off the head of the snake, and the body would die. Emperor Krathel commanded the fleet from his personal flagship, the Eternal Conquest. It was the largest warship ever built by the Kethvari, bristling with weapons that could crack a planet in half. "Today we write history," Krathel announced to his fleet. "Today we show the galaxy that the Kethvari Empire fears nothing. Not ancient machines. Not forgotten ancestors. Not humans. Today we take back our place at the top of the galactic order." The fleet cheered. 10,000 ships prepared for battle, but the humans knew they were coming. Admiral Lisa Grant stood on the bridge of the starship, Endeavour, watching the tactical display. The Kethvari fleet had been tracked since it began assembling. Human intelligence networks had reported every movement, every preparation. "They're bringing everything they have," her tactical officer reported. 10,000 ships. 5 million soldiers, Lisa nodded calmly. She had been a military officer for 30 years. She had fought pirates and smugglers in small border conflicts, but nothing had prepared her for what was about to happen. Behind her, 50 ships waited. But these were not ordinary human vessels. These were architect ships, awakened from their billion-year slumber. Each one was miles long, built from materials that modern science could not identify. Each one contained weapons that could destroy planets. Captain Matt Sullivan commanded one of these vessels, a ship that had been named the Starborn. He was still learning how to operate it. The ship responded to thought, to intention, to something deep in human DNA that connected them to their ancient ancestors. His crew included navigator Laura Chen and weapons officer Kevin Brooks, both of whom had been selected for their ability to interface with the architect systems. "This feels strange," Laura said, her hands hovering over controls that seemed to move on their own. "It's like the ship already knows what I want to do before I think it." "It was built for us," Matt replied. "It's been waiting for us. We just have to trust it." The Kethvari fleet emerged from hyperspace near the Orion Nebula. They expected to catch the humans off guard. They expected an easy first strike. Instead, they found the human fleet waiting for them. Emperor Krathel stared at the tactical display in confusion. There were only 50 human ships. 50 against 10,000. It should have been laughable. But something about those ships made his blood run cold. They were enormous. They were dark. And they radiated power that his sensors could barely measure. "All ships, attack," Krathel commanded. "Destroy them." The Kethvari fleet surged forward. 10,000 ships opened fire at once. The space between the two fleets filled with missiles and energy beams, a storm of destruction that should have vaporized anything in its path. The human ships did not move. They did not need to. Golden shields appeared around each architect vessel. The same shields that had protected New Haven. The Kethvari weapons struck the shields and disappeared. Not a single shot reached the human ships. Then the architect vessels fired back. Matt Sullivan watched through the Starborn's sensors as beams of golden light swept through the Kethvari formation. Each beam touched dozens of ships. Each ship touched by the beam simply ceased to exist. No explosions, no debris, just empty space where warships had been moments before. "My God," Kevin whispered. "We're not fighting them. We're erasing them." Battle, if it could be called a battle, lasted less than 3 hours. The Kethvari fought bravely. They tried ramming attacks. They tried sacrificing ships to create openings. They tried everything their military had learned in 8,000 years of warfare. None of it mattered. When it was over, only a handful of Kethvari ships remained. The Eternal Conquest drifted in space, its weapons destroyed, its engines dead. Emperor Krathel sat alone on his bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his officers, staring at nothing. His empire was gone. His military was gone. Everything he had spent his life building had been swept away in a single afternoon. Admiral Lisa Grant's face appeared on his view screen. "Emperor Krathel," she said. Her voice was not gloating. It was sad. "This did not have to happen. We did not want this war. We did not ask for this power. But you gave us no choice." Krathel said nothing. What was there to say? "We are going to let you live," Lisa continued. "You and the survivors of your fleet will return to your home world. You will tell your people what happened here. And you will tell them this: humanity does not want conquest. We do not want revenge. We want peace. Real peace." For everyone, the view screen went dark. On the Endeavor, Lisa turned away from the communications console. Lieutenant Commander Eric Shaw stood beside her, his face troubled. "They'll hate us for this," Eric said. "Every species in the galaxy will fear us now." Yes, Lisa agreed. "They will. But fear can become respect, and respect can become friendship. It will take time. It will take patience. But we have to try." She looked out at the debris field that had once been the mightiest fleet in the galaxy. "The architects left us this power for a reason," she said quietly. "Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to protect, to build, to bring the galaxy together. That's what we have to do now. That's our responsibility." Far away, Ambassador Kate Morrison received news of the battle. She stood before the Galactic Council and made a simple statement. "The Kethvari Empire attacked us. We defended ourselves. The war is over." She paused, looking at the frightened faces around her. "We have proven that we have the power to destroy any who threaten us. Now we wish to prove something else. We wish to prove that we can be trusted. We wish to prove that power and wisdom can exist together. We extend our hand to every species in this chamber, not as conquerors, but as partners, as family." High Counselor Zethrin watched her carefully. The other delegates whispered among themselves. The galaxy had changed forever. Now, it was time to see what that change would bring. 1 year had passed since the battle at the Orion Nebula. 1 year since the truth about humanity had been revealed to the galaxy. 1 year since everything changed. The Galactic Council chamber looked different now. The old arrangement, with powerful species sitting high above newcomers, had been replaced. Now all delegates sat at the same level, in a great circle that represented equality among all members. It had been Kate Morrison's idea, and after some initial resistance, even the proudest species had agreed. High Counselor Zethrin called the assembly to order. He was still the leader of the council, but his role had changed. He was no longer a ruler looking down on lesser beings. He was a guide, helping the galaxy navigate its new reality. 1 year ago, we learned that humanity was not what we believed them to be, Zethrin began. We learned that they were the descendants of the architects, the first intelligent species in the galaxy. We learned that their ancestors had created the conditions for all our civilizations to exist. We were afraid. We were confused. Some of us were angry. He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled delegates. But 1 year later, I can say that our fears were misplaced. Humanity has not used their power to conquer or control. They have used it to heal, to build, to help. They have shown us what true strength looks like, and I, for one, am grateful. Ambassador Kate Morrison smiled from her seat in the circle. It had been a difficult year. Many species had refused to trust humans at first. Old fears and old hatreds did not disappear overnight, but slowly, gradually, things had begun to change. On Earth, the integration of architect technology had transformed human society. Dr. Ben Harris led a team of thousands of scientists, working to understand and apply the ancient knowledge that had been left for them, Disease was becoming a thing of the past. The architect medical technology could cure almost any illness, repair almost any injury. Energy was unlimited now. Every home, every city, every vehicle ran on power drawn from the fabric of space itself. No more pollution. No more scarcity. No more wars fought over resources. Dr. Megan Price had continued her work translating the architect's texts. With each new discovery, humanity learned more about their ancestors and themselves. The architects believed that intelligence was the most precious thing in the universe. Megan explained during a public broadcast. They spent millions of years nurturing life, guiding evolution, helping other species develop their potential. When they were forced to give up their power, their greatest hope was that their descendants would continue that work, that we would become guardians of life, not destroyers of it. General Chris Palmer, once the commander of Earth's military forces, now led humanitarian missions across the galaxy. The architect ships that had once devastated the Kethvari fleet were now being used to deliver food, medicine, and aid to worlds in need. Disasters that would once have killed millions could now be prevented or quickly repaired. The Kethvari Empire had been hardest hit by the changes. Their military was gone. Their pride was shattered. Many had expected humanity to punish them, to reduce them to slaves or destroy them entirely. Instead, humanity had offered help. Lieutenant Amy Collins, who had once watched helplessly as Kethvari ships filled the sky above New Haven, now commanded a relief mission to the Kethvari homeworld. Her ship, an architect vessel named the Peacekeeper, carried supplies and equipment to help rebuild their civilization. "I don't understand," a young Kethvari official said to her as they oversaw the distribution of medical supplies. "We tried to destroy you. We killed your people. Why are you helping us?" Amy thought about the question for a moment. "Because hatred doesn't fix anything," she said finally. "Because revenge just creates more revenge. Because the only way to break the cycle is for someone to choose to be better. We're choosing to be better. We hope you will too." The young official stared at her for a long moment. Then he slowly extended one of his four hands. Amy took it. It was a small moment, but small moments, repeated across the galaxy, were changing everything. Captain Matt Sullivan and his crew on the Starbourne had been assigned to exploration duty. They traveled to the far reaches of the galaxy, visiting architect installations that had waited billions of years for human return. Each discovery brought new knowledge, new technology, new understanding. On a distant world at the galaxy's edge, they found something special. A chamber deep underground, perfectly preserved after all these eons. And in that chamber, a message. Laura Chen decoded the ancient symbols while Matt and Kevin watched. "It's from them," Laura said, her voice barely a whisper. "From the original architects, from our ancestors." Message appeared on the chamber's walls, glowing with soft golden light. "We knew we would forget," it read. "We knew the sleep would be long. We knew that when we woke, we would not remember who we were. But we also knew that one day our children would remember. They would look up at the stars and feel the call of home. They would reach out and touch the legacy we left behind. And when they did, they would face a choice. The same choice we faced so long ago." Matt felt tears forming in his eyes. He was reading words written by beings who had lived billions of years before him, beings who were, in a way, his family. "Power is easy," the message continued. "Anyone can take power. Anyone can use it to control, to conquer, to destroy. We know this because we did it ourselves. We were not always wise. We were not always good. We made terrible mistakes. We hurt those who did not deserve to be hurt. And in the end, our mistakes caught up with us." Laura was crying now too. Kevin stood in silence, his face pale. "But we learned, in our final days, we finally understood what we should have known from the beginning. That power means nothing without wisdom. That conquest means nothing without compassion. That the measure of a civilization is not what it can destroy, but what it can create, what it can protect, what it can love." The message paused. Then the final words appeared. "Give you everything we were, our knowledge, our technology, our legacy. Use it well, children. Be better than we were. The galaxy is your home now. All of it. And it is your job to take care of it. Not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as gardeners, as healers, as friends. This is our hope. This is our prayer. This is our gift to you. The chamber fell silent. The message had ended. Matt wiped his eyes. We should share this, he said. Everyone should see this. Every human. Every species in the galaxy. Agreed, Laura said. They recorded the message and sent it back to Earth. Within days, it had spread across the galaxy. Every species saw it. Every species heard the words of the architects, and something in those words touched them, reminded them of what they could be, what they should be. On Earth, Kate Morrison had retired from her ambassadorial duties. She had spent 50 years serving humanity, first as a diplomat on Earth, and then as their voice to the galaxy. Now she wanted to rest. She returned to her hometown in Ohio, to the small house where she had grown up. She sat on her porch in the evenings, watching the stars appear one by one. Sometimes her family visited. Her children. Her grandchildren. One evening her grandson Luke sat beside her. He was 8 years old, with curious eyes and endless questions. Grandma, he asked, were we really the first? The first people in the whole galaxy. Kate smiled and put her arm around him. Yes, we were. A very long time ago, and we forgot. We forgot everything? We did, but we remembered. And now we have a chance to do things right. Luke looked up at the stars. What does that mean? Doing things right? Kate thought about all she had seen in her long life. The fear when humanity first met the galaxy. The wonder when they learned who they truly were. The hope as they began to use their power for good instead of evil. It means taking care of each other, she said finally. It means helping people who need help. It means being kind even when it's hard. It means remembering that we're all connected, all part of the same story. Human and alien. New and old. We're all family in a way. Luke nodded slowly, thinking about her words. Above them, architect satellites glowed softly in orbit. Ancient guardians watching over the children who had finally remembered who they were. In the years to come, those children would spread across the galaxy. They would heal old wounds and build new friendships. They would face new challenges and make new mistakes. But they would learn. They would grow. The galaxy had realized too late that humanity was the first and oldest power. But humanity had realized something far more important. Power meant nothing without wisdom. Strength meant nothing without kindness. And the true measure of a civilization was not how much it could conquer, but how much it could love. The architects had known this truth 5 billion years ago, and now their descendants would carry that truth forward. Into eternity, the stars shone bright above the little house in Ohio, and somewhere out there, the vast darkness between the suns. The future was waiting. A future where humanity and all the species of the galaxy would walk together. A future worth fighting for. A future worth remembering.